I think.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Hello. So, you want to do the introductions?
I would, Johnny.
Yes. It's Alan.
I'll introduce myself.
Yes.
Right.
Bonadil.
My name is Alan Walther. I'm a partner with the Bonadil Group. We are the library's auditors, and we have provided draft reports. So as far as we're concerned, the audit is complete. We want to review drafts with you. I think the only thing that we're missing is a response from the attorney. We need an attorney letter
Yes.
response. And
Waiting
then
on that.
and then we'll get a representation letter signed, and we'll be ready to issue the final reports. But I don't expect anything to change unless you guys see something that should change. So we issued there's two draft reports. The first report that I get to go through is the required communications letter, which, as the title indicates, required communication anytime that we do an audit. It just kind of talks about what we do as auditors and some of the results of the audit. So some of the important information for the board to know here, right in the middle of the first page under significant audit findings, the third sentence in that paragraph, no new accounting policies were adopted, and the application of existing policies was not changed during 2021. All we're saying there is that, at least accounting wise, it was a relatively uneventful year for the library with regards to applying new accounting policies. At the bottom of the page, significant estimates that affect the financial statements. You think of the financial statements as numbers. You think as numbers is exact. It's not necessarily so. There are some estimates, the most significant being depreciable lives, right, of the property and equipment, and compensated assets. The next page, difficulties encountered in performing an audit, no significant difficulties, so it was very helpful. All the information that we asked for was provided, so that went very well. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements. We did make a bunch of adjustments, and we do have a management letter comment regarding that. The books of the library are basically maintained on a cash basis, and your financial statement is prepared using generally accepted accounting principles. So we made a bunch of entries to record receivables and payables, and then we also, there's significant capital projects work. We also separated the capital projects expenditures out of the general fund where it wasn't really budgeted and put into its own. So when we look at the financial statements, we'll talk about that, and then we can work with Joy to get things where they should be. Disagreements with management, no disagreements with management with regard to access to accounting records or financial reporting or anything like that. So that's the extent of my comments on the required communications letter, unless there's any questions.
So what were the recommendations?
We'll talk about that.
Yes,
We'll talk. We'll talk. Yep. So let's take a look at the financial statements. So if you go all the way to page 25, we'll go back. If we go all the way to page 25, is a schedule of findings and question costs. So what this does is, in a one-page summary, it summarizes the results of the audit for the year. So the audit opinion that we will be issuing is unmodified. That's the highest level of assurance that we can give on your financial statements. Okay. With regard to internal controls, there was a material weakness identified, which we'll talk about again. It really has to do with, it's not that there's internal control issues over cash receipts, cash disbursements, internal control issues over preparing financial statements with the monthly gap. So we'll talk about that. We'll get to that. No significant deficiencies, no non-compliance stuff. Okay. So let's go all the way back to page 1, which is our independent auditors report. And for those of you who have been on the board in the past and who have actually read the independent audit reports, the independent audit reports changed this year, so the format is different than what you have seen in the past. But you know, we'll take a look at the report and I'll hit upon the what I think the important information for the board is. Excuse me, in the first section, opinions, the important information there is in the second paragraph, which I will paraphrase. In our opinion, the financial statements present fairly the financial position of the library as of December 31st, 2021. Again, that is what we as auditors call an unmodified opinion. That's the highest level of assurance that we give our new financial statements. Okay. The next section, basis for opinions, that just talks about what we do as auditors. We conducted our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States and government auditing standards because you're technically a government. The next section, responsibilities of management. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of financial statements. They are ultimately, even though we assist in the preparation of the financial statements, they are the library's financial statements, not ours. The next page. Auditors.
What page is that?
Page 2, top of page 2. The auditor's responsibilities for the audit. The first paragraph there, our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material. It says as a while, that should be as a whole. Are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. And then it talks, a little bit about the risk of detecting a material misstatement to an audit. Basically, to paraphrase what we're saying there, an audit is not a guarantee that there are no misstatements, right? We can't look at every single transaction, but we do an awful lot of work, and we do enough to gather evidence to support our opinions. And again, which our opinion was that it was unmodified. The financial statements were unmodified. Pages 4 through 7, I believe. Yeah, pages 4 through 7 is the management's discussion analysis. If you don't read the entire financial statement document, at least read those 4 pages. It gives a good overview of what occurred during the year. It's written in relatively written terms. I'm going to skip over it in its entirety because most of the stuff that's in there, when I talk about the financial statements, I'll hit upon what's in there. But that's the management discussion analysis does provide a good overall summary narrative of what happened in the year. So that brings us to page 8. So the library, excuse me, as a government is required to present 2 sets of financial statements. So you have government-wide financial statements, library-wide financial statements, your statement of net position, your statement of activities, which is the funds of the library, which is now the general fund and capital fund combined together, and then you add in your long-term assets and you subtract out long-term liabilities. So in the library's case, we general fund and capital projects fund now combined together. Then we add capital assets, and then the long-term liabilities, which are primarily the compensated assets, to convert your fund level financial statements to your government-wide financial statements. Okay. So the highlights here, the statement of net position. The highlights here, your total assets were $2.1 million. of which 773,000 were current assets, of which 695,000 of that was cash, and 74,000 of receivables. Your capital assets net of accumulated depreciation were $1.3 million. Your total current liabilities, accounts payable and accruals were 51,000. Your long-term liabilities were 122,000. The accounting formula is assets minus liabilities brings you to net position. Your total net position is 1,942,000, and then that's further broken down to invested in capital assets. Right, a big portion of your net position is tied up in this building and the improvements of 1,343,000. You have restricted net position of 3,000, and unrestricted net position of 596,000. Page 9 is the statement of activities. And what this is meant to do is show what the library spends its money on, which is culture and recreation, right? The library services. So you spent $1,249,000. Your program revenue 25,606, charges for services. So you had a net deficit in the far right of $1,223,000 to finance with general revenue, and you provided that revenue predominantly via your property tax levy of $1.2 million. There was some miscellaneous revenue of $114,000 and some state grants of $204,000. So the net results for the year was that you had a positive change in net position. Net position increased by $297,000 for 2020. Okay. And then page 10 is your balance sheet for your fund. So this is where we split it out at the fund level, and the fund level uses the modified accrual method of accounting, which just means that you're recognizing revenue and expenses in most a 1 year period, whereas at the government wide, we're looking at the long term. That's why we're capitalizing long term debt. I'm sorry, the long term assets. So it takes a different look at the library's finances. The fund level, right? That's your operating budget. That's really what your day-to-day operations is based upon this. Okay. So as I said, we split apart the capital piece from the general fund piece. So you can see the two columns there. The general fund total assets, $1,054,000, of which cash was $695,000, and due from other funds. So due from the capital fund was $341,000. You had some accrued liabilities, $23,000, and the accounting formula again is assets minus liabilities, brings you to fund balance. You have $1,031,000 of fund balance. With the capital funds, again, we split that out. Excuse me, $60,597 in receivables. That was some grant money that is due to you. Accounts payable, $28,000 in your liabilities. That was due to some of your construction contractors. Deferred revenue of $74,000, with some unspent grant funds. So that's just we'll recognize that in the future. And then due to other funds, $341,000 was due back to the general fund. You'll know that the capital projects fund does have a $383,000 deficit, which you will need to fund from the general fund, right? That will need to go to zero once those projects are complete, and we determine what is left after collecting all the grant money. The general fund will need to make the capital project fund whole. Okay. At the bottom of the page there's a required reconciliation of your fund balance, the $647,000, to your net position of 1.9. So again, the libraries operations is pretty easy because there's really only two adjustments. We add in the capital assets and we subtract out the compensated absences. So those are the only two long-term reconciliation items to get from fund balance to net position.
So what's the fund balance?
Fund balance is at the fund level you're operating, and net position is at the library-wide level, using the full accrual method of accounting. Fund balance is budget, but I just look at the fund balance is budgetary basis. Net position is full accrual basis. It's about as simple. I know. It's not easy to understand. Budgetary basis. Page 11 is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. So you can see the general funds took in $1.3 million, which the largest chunk is property taxes. You spent $1,238,000. So you grew your excess of revenue over expenditures. You grew your fund balance by $88,000 during the year. The capital projects fund, excuse me, took in $219,000, $204,000 of state grants, $15,000 of other grants. You spent $603,000 on the various projects. There's the $383,000 deficit again, which a pretty significant chunk of that will need to be reimbursed by the general funds. From the page 12, similar to how you reconcile fund balance to net position, you reconcile the net change in fund balance to the change in net position, $295,000. We add back, or I'm sorry, we subtract depreciation, we add back capital outlays, we add back compensated absences to get to the change in net position of $297,000. Pages 13 through 21 are the notes to the financial statements. I'm not going to go through those in detail. They give information regarding accounting policies, regarding capital assets, regarding long-term liabilities. So I'm going to skip over those in their entirety and we'll go to page 22, which is your the library's results versus the budget. Okay, so the general fund. So your budgeted revenue was $1,377,000. Your actual revenue was $1,326,000. So you had a revenue shortfall of $51,000. Your total expenditures were budgeted. I'm sorry, were $1,377,000. Your actual expenditures were $1,238,000. So you had a favorable variance on the expenditure side of $139,000. So the net results, excuse me, for the year is next line excess of revenue over expenditures. You can see budgeted, right? It was zero, right? So you budgeted the expenditures to equal the revenue. The actual results were that your actual revenues were $88,000 greater than your expenditures. So you did $88,000 net favorable versus your budget. Yes.
So I followed you all the way up to your comment about $1,377,000 and then lost after that. Can you start again at the beginning of this page and say that again?
So
I didn't see the second number, the third number, the fourth number. So I'm looking
Okay.
Long way.
So let's look at, okay, so let's look at the amended budget, because you didn't even make any original and amended, I think are exactly the same, right? We didn't make any budget amendments. So let's look at that column first. You budgeted $1,377,000 in revenue. You budgeted $1,377,000 in expenditures,
Okay,
right? So you have a zero budget, right? So that's why that next line
Neutral.
is neutral, exactly. So then if we go back up to the revenue, your actual revenue was $1,326,000,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
Which is less than $1,377,000, so
Yeah.
you have a shortfall of 51, right? And then if we go down to the expenditures, your actual expenditures were $1,238,000, right? So that was short as well, but since it's expenditures, that's a favorable variance, right?
more short.
So you had 139,
Yep.
so the 139 and the 51 net to the 88.
Thank
So
you,
that's how you ended up
Got
88,000 ahead net in the budget.
thank you.
Okay. So the last report is our report on internal controls and compliance. Okay. And instead of going through all the nitty gritty of exactly what it says here regarding internal controls and compliance, let's just say compliance, as I said initially, no compliance findings. Okay, so we consider compliance with laws and regulations and no compliance findings. And then with regard to internal controls, we did have the material weakness in internal controls, as I had said initially, with regard to basically converting your records from cash basis to modified accrual basis to get to the budgetary basis, and then the government law. So we did, so that's what our financial statement finding on page 26 is about. It's just really about recording your at the fund level, the operating level, at the end of the year, you need to record receivables. So if anybody owes you money, you need to record those receivables. You need to record payables if you owe other people payables. Your light bill, that kind of thing, unpaid subscriptions, purchases of books, and then accruals. So like payroll, right? If you owe your employees because they worked through December 31st, but they didn't get paid until January 3rd, right? You would owe them a certain portion of the payroll that ended on December 31st. That wouldn't be an accounts payable because they're not actually billing you, but that would be an accrual. You need to recognize that you owe them their pay. So we calculated that out as well. Those were the biggest changes. And then what you need to do as well is reverse those at the beginning of the year, and then record them again at the end of the year. So we'll work with Joy to come up with a process that works. We're not really suggesting, unless the board wants to do this, to do receivables and payables and accruals every single month. I'm not sure that we need to go that far, but we definitely need to do it at least at the end of the year. Otherwise, your financial statements are not in accordance with GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles.
So for the management response, I gave the information to
Teresa, okay,
Yes, and
okay.
one of the things that we had mentioned, or I had mentioned with her before, is in the past 13 years, that end piece that you said is the material weakness, the auditors provided us with all of those adjustments. But yes, I'll work with Teresa,
Okay.
so then if that's something that I need to definitely do.
Well, if you don't do it, we're gonna,
Yeah,
I
we're
guess
gonna do
you're gonna have, we'll do it,
Right.
but you're gonna have the material weakness.
Right,
So
yes, so,
it's up to you, whether you do it or not. It's really, it's not gonna be that hard,
Yes.
because it's really, if you look at when you pay your bills in January, just look at what relates to December, keep track of those, and then, look. I mean, that, it's real, it's, you know, it's not rocket science. So,
Well, I was just wanting to say that.
yeah, no, yeah. So, and, you know, I mean, and they probably, I don't think they ever said it's material weakness.
They never said that, so.
Well, I'm not,
That's
you
the
know,
only
I mean,
reason
we're
why
not
I
trying
wanted
to
to
be, you know,
Not being picky.
I get it.
Right.
We're not- we have our job to do as well. So, but that's the extent of my comments, unless there's any questions?
Sure. So how much less than our budget did we expend last year? How much did we have left over?
I think, let's see, what was 139? Let's see if I remember that correctly. It was, yeah, page 22, 139.
Oh, I thought you said 88.
88.
Well, and so, well, all right, well, that, well, I guess we're parsing the question because there was 139 left to be spent.
Yes.
But you were 88,000 ahead of your budget. You were 139,000 favorable on your expenditure side, but 51 unfavorable on the revenue.
Right.
Depends what the question you're asking.
So it depends, yeah, exactly, not to be a politician, but,
Although in terms of cash, it works somewhat different. But, I mean,
on the cash side, 88,000, or whatever, from a net side, right, because we saved 139 and lost 51, probably 88.
So just what, you know, we're always asking, well, how much did we not spend? How much do we have left that could be used for other purposes?
Yeah.
And it's kind of difficult to figure out. So the 88,000 would be after you also took out anything where the expense is still outstanding and needs to be paid.
Yeah, and you know, the library has $1 million fund balance, right, on a $1.3 million budget, so you're very solid financial, even if, right, you keep in mind too, even though you have $1 million, let's say 300,000 needs to go over the capital projects fund, you still have 700,000 on a 1.4 million, so 50, but let's say 50% plus or minus, you have 50% fund balance, so you're very financially secure. And that fund balance is predominantly in cash as well, right? You're sitting on 700,000 cash. Oh, we're at December 31st. I don't know what you guys say, so I can't say that. Maybe it's all gone. We haven't looked since December 31st. Maybe it's all gone.
Thank you for adding that.
Hopefully, you have a little bit left.
Yeah, right.
After 4.5 months.
Because it will be a few months before we get substantial revenue in. So we need to pay our bills in between there.
Yeah, we don't
Yeah, and
get,
that's the reason for the fund balance.
right, we don't get the first tax payments till the end of March.
Yep,
And so you're running almost, well, you're running 3 months without
right.
any
With
income.
any real,
Yeah.
it's all, I mean, however the tax flow flows to you is, that's how you
Yeah, I'm
live or
all
die,
about-
basically.
I'm all about the cash flow.
Yeah, I'm over that, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So, any other questions?
A previous auditor gave us the opinion that as a library, we should not be selling to the public, should we say library branded items? And I'm just curious what your opinion on that might be.
Selling a coffee mug that says Troy Public Library?
T-shirts, tote bags, we were told, and sweatshirts, we were told.
Well, I mean,
Special occasions, though, like.
well, they said that, people can donate they can donate, suggested donation
You have to do a-
Cool.
So I don't
Get this for donation.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't see any issue with that. You're a government, not a five. I mean, I could see if you were a 501c3 nonprofit and you were, and it would never be enough. I think it would really have any huge effect, but there's this concept of unrelated business income, right? If you're a nonprofit, and you're selling coffee mugs, that's not really what you're in
Right.
business for. But for you guys, I don't see an issue. I mean, I can't imagine how many realistically, if you were, I mean, how much you realistically sell.
Yeah, it's not much.
10,000, I mean,
I don't think it would be.
yeah,
10,000.
well,
That'd be-
I'm
That'd
trying
be
to,
amazing. if
yeah,
we did that.
exactly. So is it, I don't know. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I can't see any, I mean, I guess if you do it, because you probably, do you guys do any sales tax at all? You have to pay sales tax.
That would be the only.
That would
piece.
be, it would be almost, that might be,
You might not-
that might be why you do a donation.
Yeah.
Instead of selling it, because if you sell it, now you have to collect
Sales tax,
7.5% or whatever it is, you probably know what the sales tax rate is, you have to collect the sales tax and remit it, just the
Bookkeeping.
the bookkeeping of that might be a reason.
I think that is why they said that.
Probably, yeah, I guess thinking it through, that would probably, and again, for $2,000 of sales, it's probably not worth the headache of doing, I get it, I guess. I would agree with that, haven't made in suggested donation, I guess makes sense, yeah. Not that we're trying to, stick it to New York State, all they would get would be like 2,000 times 4%, $80. So if it's worth that for them to come down here and hound you guys for $80, then.
The administrative cost alone would be. way
Yeah,
more
well,
than
that's what I
that.
mean, I'm just filling out, exactly, so I get it, yeah. That's
So it's not
fine.
recommended, but it's not illegal.
It's not, right, exactly. That would be.
Yeah, I noticed that, it was at least before, when the Met Fund Museum in New York, it's a donation. But you get a ticket that you
Right.
pay,
You can't
that
get it
you have
without
to
it.
show,
Right.
but
Actually,
it's a donation.
You can get in without making a donation.
But you have
Mm,
to say,
true.
I'm donating $0, please get me.
But it's still
offended.
cold.
You have to have an interaction with someone saying you're not giving them money.
Right,
It's
that's
a little
a new
awkward.
Anyway,
Or you didn't even have to do that.
And another question.
Mhm.
As we're going through updating policies,
Mhm.
part of our job, the finance policy is one thing that we need to work on,
Mhm.
or look at. As part of the audit, do you go through our policy manuals? That's
At
okay.
a high level, so we have it, we look at it. I'm not gonna bless it or curse it, I guess, if that's what you're asking.
Well, that would be part two.
So,
Any comments on it?
I guess as you go through and you have any questions, run the questions by us.
Oh.
Yeah, that's fine. I could probably find, and again, if you want, I could probably find in other libraries, finance policies.
But I think,
So-
yeah,
I
do
do
research.
Okay. So we have to turn. All right. That was just a question. I know that, according to Paul, most of it is based on legalities anyway.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
there's always
yeah.
something.
Some of it is state law, and general municipal law.
And you're here,
Yeah,
so.
and there's, yeah, so it's, it's a finance policy, right, which I understand finance, but it's also a legal issue, so, you have to run it by the lawyers.
We still need the letter.
Yep, so. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully you guys get done soon and can enjoy this
Sorry for my
beautiful.
introduction. I
this-
didn't
this
know what I was
beautiful-
supposed to introduce.
It's all right.
How got it?
That's all right. You don't need any more than that.
You do that. so.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Thank you.
Okay.
all right, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Sure thing, no, it was my pleasure. Beautiful building, beautiful day, nice day to be in downtown Troy. Let's see it. Have a good one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody too for being flexible about how this meeting's going. You're staying for the whole.
Depends how long it lasts.
That's right. Well, just so, you know, if we go through this, we can figure out that order. So first and foremost, any public comment?
Are we doing the finance?
Well, that comes.
Well,
Are we
we'd
doing
have
our
to do
finance
it-
or, oh, here's a question. Do we want to do it as part of our meeting? Do we want to do a separate finance committee, or do we just want to do it during the regular report?
I prefer to just keep it rolling, if
Okay.
that is permissible under our rules of order.
Yep.
Just keep charging ahead.
Yep, so are we good with this?
I'd
Okay.
like to get a time estimate.
Time- How much longer?
How long?
Maybe?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully not too. And this should take
Not
care of,
too, so,
long.
yeah, so that means 15 minutes, we're talking a half hour, we're talking 2 hours.
I'm just gonna do the bills, I figured, I mean.
just
For the
the
whole-
bills,
for the whole
it
thing.
depends on the questions.
That's the whole thing.
Kirsten, if I had a crystal ball, I'd tell you, but,
Okay, I'm gonna get your hard stop at some point.
okay, what time, no?
Say 7:30 is definitely a hard stop, and
Okay.
I'm not sure I'll get there.
Okay, all right, I'll work on it, we'll see if we can't get everything that needs to be done. Thank you. So no public comment. Carolyn?
So, hoping that everyone got a chance to look at the financial statements before they came, so if they have any questions, you can kind of just power through it. There wasn't anything, because we haven't got paid again with the taxes, so we're running a little behind, but there's nothing that stood out in my mind. Or looked questionable, unless somebody else has. We pretty much labeled everything that we were spending and what it was on that was out of the ordinary.
Well, we did have to buy library cards.
Yes, but we talked about that, last month, because that was on the list of bills.
Okay,
So we
yeah,
were all set on that. We knew it was for 3 years. Got that one covered.
because they might go a couple of years before we have to do it, and then all of a sudden.
Yes.
I've got a question, Paul. When we pay that for Andy, how many months is that?
What's that?
When we pay there, how many months does that cover right there? Is that monthly?
Oh, you're on the bills, I don't know.
That's
I'm not
every
on the
month,
bills
Derek.
yet.
Who is it?
Sorry.
Derek, yes, Derek is
that's
every
his
month.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll see, I mean, we want to go right to the bills. There's a large bill for National Grid for Lansingburg. But Joy had said that in the past, we were paying just what we had to pay, and we were accruing some finance charges, so now we're paying the whole bill. That's why it's so much higher than it.
Just the
normally is.
current charges, the total current charges has gone up with the gas price also, and so it's the Lansingburg one.
The Lansingburg National Grid bill is.
Oh, the
significantly
National
higher.
Grid bill, okay.
And of course, that's also electric and the gas,
Right.
so.
Okay, but I thought we had checked before and were told that we weren't paying any finance charges.
Well, I can show you the bill that we have. I just was afraid you would start doing that if you were carrying too much of a balance, so.
I think they may not have been charging. Or just in general, I don't know that for institutions versus individuals.
But now we'll be up to date.
Yes, now we are up, so it.
Does anybody have any other questions about the bills?
Yeah. Magnify, what is a troll phone?
Oh, that is Lansingburg. TROL is, sorry, it's our internal code for Lansingburg. I should have put Lansingburg on.
Okay,
Next time I'll try to remember.
or remember there's a Virgin Lansingburg.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So I will make the motion, do I make the motion? Please, I'll make a motion to pay the bills in the amount of $39,456.
It's the next. Did you bring your own copy?
I thought I used the, with the dental.
Yes, and then I had to update it again.
Oh.
But here's the new list, which is in the packet.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
We get bills in right up to.
Right out of
the-
I got like
Oh,
CDTA.
Okay,
42,000.
that's, I make a motion now.
Okay.
The bills in the amount of $42,485.47. Everybody in favor? No nays? All right. Pay the bills. Okay. Do you want me to come in tomorrow? If you would like this tomorrow. isn't it?
Oh, yeah. If you want me to put that paperwork back in here, just so. you can double check it.
Any other questions about anything else, just in case?
No.
Okay. Consent agenda. This month's consent agenda, we have the minutes, building committee, Upper Hudson and President's report. A motion, I make the motion to accept the consent agenda.
I would like to ask the administration committee to come off the consent agenda.
Anyone have any objection?
My son has a game.
Oh, that's
Sorry,
fine.
you don't have any excuses.
Okay,
That's
that's
right.
right.
Thanks, Gloria. For next, from here on, we'll take this off the consent agenda.
Okay,
Okay.
if I. I'm the one that put 3 down twice.
Yeah, I know. And you put yourself down, I know. Okay, so,
I don't know, I had to let go, I don't know.
so motion to accept the consent agenda, do I have a second?
Wait, it includes, so we're including the minutes,
Minutes?
which thank you for doing that, Evelyn. But there's no building committee report unless I missed that.
No, you're correct.
Okay,
There's
so
not
taking that out. There upper Hudson report, yes?
Yep.
And there's a Hudson report, yes. Okay.
It's a very short one.
So yes, I second.
All in favor? Okay.
Yes.
We already did number 1, we had a review, unless there's any other discussion or questions, now that he's out of the room. Hearing none, we'll go
It
to,
was most helpful having it walk through it.
I'm sorry,
It
what?
was most helpful having it there.
Oh,
Even though I
yes.
read it this morning.
I like in person. It's easier to get questions. To be honest, I'm very happy that both our guests were willing to do that today. New staff members.
We have those staff members.
Yes, please.
We have 2 new staff members for the part-time in the circulation department. Samantha Christensen Trippy is a current New Albany student. She's working on her master's degree in library science.
Woo.
Nush Agarwal is an undergraduate student at RPI, majoring in applied physics. And both are enthusiastic part-time circulation workers in training at the moment.
So,
You want to do that? or you-
yes, I make the motion to
Approve the hires.
approve the new hires.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, you're on again, 2023 budgets.
Okay, well, I will be working between now and the June meeting on the 2023 budget. And what we're looking at is a couple of fairly large issues, as we've discussed before, and I've included in my director's report. First of all, adopting a new salary schedule, which is very much in need based on current information from libraries and our salary surveys and the surveys that we've seen. So I constructed the salary schedule, and based on that, to implement that in next year would cost a little bit over 100,000, probably about 108,000, depending. And then, of course, the issue of participation in the New York State retirement system. We already have a figure roughly on that based on what they have supplied us. I don't anticipate that there will be a lot of difference. But that amount would be 130,000. Now we wouldn't, we would have to pay them 92,000 within that 2023 budget. But we'd still have to pay the makeup, you know, as we go along, which is about 37,000. So there is a small amount of savings if we begin the New York State retirement system, you know, January 1, and then discontinue the library's contribution to the TIAA program, which runs anywhere from 21 to 24,000 a year. So there is that kind of savings as well. There's some other adjustments in the budget that I haven't fully worked out yet. That's what I'll be working on. What I would anticipate is at least adding a 5% increase to the materials budget. There's a couple small adjustments. We need to increase our IT support a little bit. But there may also be other areas, you know, that we don't have to increase or we can decrease. So those I will be working out, but I don't anticipate a lot of difference in all those other items. So the big difference I anticipate, of course, is implementing the salary schedule and participating in the New York State retirement system. I can present that to you in June as a budget and roughly estimates as to what that means for our library tax. As you know, that's 90-some-odd% of our income. So that's the big, that'll be the big impact. Right now, as I said before, the controller's office has said that every 100,000 would require about an 8% tax increase in the library tax. So you get an idea of what we're talking about.
How much are you putting in toward the building?
I think it should be increased a little bit. It's probably not the time to put the full amount that we might need. It should be probably 30,000-40,000. It's actually 13,500.
But we've made some commitments, you know, when we apply for grants, there's often a commitment of could be 25%. are we accounting for that in our budget?
Well, yeah,
And if
well,
not, should we-
not indirectly in the budget, we do have a carryover in our construction account, unrestricted construction account going forward. I believe enough to cover, hopefully enough to cover not only next year's grant, but one after that.
It
When you
might
say
be,
next year's grant, you mean which grant?
The one we've already applied for, we're waiting for an answer on down there, but yeah. The grant that I would be working on right now would be the roof at the main lobby.
But doesn't address the other grants that we pursued if we should be lucky enough.
What's that?
Does not address the other grants that we pursued that should we be lucky enough to proceed, that those are not included in that budget, is that correct?
Right.
perhaps we should take a look at what that would entail, all the things that we have applied for or looking into applying for as part of that budget, rather than, you know, because I don't have a good feel for that. What do you think, Carolyn? Do you think that's
Yeah,
appropriate?
I think we should, well, and
For the-
especially a timeline, like when would we have to,
Right,
you know, is it gonna be this year or is it gonna be next year, or you know?
because we usually have several grants that are in process going forward. So do you want to do a,
Well, I can take a look and say, there's some monies left in the unrestricted construction account, but there's also $196,000 that we got, you know, in a bequest. And I think that, you know, we should use that if we need to.
well, but the problem is that where we often need to have that is where we have reimbursable grants. So we have to outlay and pay the expenses and then get reimbursed. So we need to have something.
Well,
Some kind of
that's
cushion
based on
in
the
order
size
to-
of the grant. I mean, you can do that right out of operating money if it's small enough, you know, and we've done that before.
Right, but we're not talking about small grants. Right now, we
We can't,
have about
we
$1 million
can't do,
worth
we
of
can't do
grants.
600 and some odd $1,000, no.
Well, we might be able to do it on as a if we don't have to wait to the completion of the project.
Oh, yeah, right. Oh,
But-
absolutely.
But then we would probably need that 200,000, not, you know, we probably couldn't do it out of our operating budget. So I think these are all the kind of commitments we've made, and we should be taking a look at what the impact is and be prepared to address it.
Well, yeah, but like I said, I think that we need to think about using the 196,000 for some of these grants. You know,
But if we use it as our match, then it won't be there to pay expenses and get reimbursed. So we need to be conscious of that in what we're doing. And it wouldn't hurt to look at our financial position as far as all these considerations go.
So did you have all those details about on the grants that you applied for, what are the stipulations? That you could share with us, you know, and not right in this minute,
Well,
but you know, like if you could put
yeah,
it in a Dropbox or
certainly.
something.
Certainly, I have the two that we've just applied for. And
Right,
I may have figures on the ones that are outstanding, such as the parapet. But I haven't really sat down and taken a look at what
yeah,
our commitments are.
we can take a look at, you know, what our position would be. I don't recommend that we, you know, request another 100,000 in next year's budget.
Right, well, I'm more concerned about the commitments we've already made
As I said, what we
than the
use.
next one, but it would be helpful to know even as far as what we're looking
Well, I
at.
can supply what our resources are.
And the commitments we've made.
Yeah.
I mean, I was sort of doing that in the one that I was looking at, what, you know, what the different financing components were. So can we plan to do that? Then? You want to have a special finance committee meeting for that, or?
Just to look at it so we have an idea, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's always, doesn't hurt to have an idea of where you're
It's getting to
standing.
the point, yeah, it's getting to the point that I'm feeling uneasy about, hey, what are we committing to do, and wanting to be responsible and being able to live up to our obligations.
I feel uneasy using the word commitments because we're not really committed to, we absolutely accept it.
Yeah, right.
Or until it's confirmed it's offered. to us. We don't
Right,
know
well,
what's
this would
being
give us an
confirmed.
idea of whether
A
we should
plan.
accept or not.
Right, but there are several out there that we have.
It hasn't been offered and it hasn't been accepted at this point.
The Upper Hudson grant, I thought we were offered that.
Oh, yeah, that, yeah, we
And we're just waiting for
should be
this.
covered there. That's
Right.
not a problem.
So, you know, and plus we have some others as well. So it doesn't,
Well, you've got, you know, we applied for the DRI grant, we applied to the ARPA grant. I
well,
mean,
I'm thinking of the ones even before that. I don't have a good feel for what.
I think
what the
that
cash flow is
I
involved in
can let you know what position we're in, but as I said before, and you know, as I was applying for these grants through the public library construction program, we may have to use part of the 196,000.
Well,
That-
I mean-
That's why she's got concerns, I believe.
Yeah, I've already
So-
said that that's probably going to, you know, be needed,
well,
at least some of it.
we should be on firmer ground than just, probably, we should look at this to be on firmer ground. I mean, yes, we can turn down grants, but that costs us to turn it down, because even where we have a 25% contribution, we're turning down 3 times that much. And where's, you know, so where's the money going to come from? We get essentially at least or around 3 times what we put into with these grants. So we don't want to go around turning it down because we need that money. As,
Well, it's
you
an
know,
issue,
to
but-
finance the building. So I think we've been very fortunate in the past by not putting very much money in. But on the other hand, we don't want to end up with like a hose either.
But I
I
think
think,
that's a consideration and something we need to consider, but more importantly, we need to consider the other 2 issues for next year
They're all.
on the
important.
2023.
right, they're all important. I mean, yes, you could have staff and no building, like a hose. So you need to, it's something that has to be considered overall.
And
I'm saying that we should look at it from a knowledgeable standpoint, and also just whether to proceed with trying to get the grants we have, because otherwise, if we don't have grants, then it comes out of the operating, which is what you're saying you're trying to avoid, to be able to put as much in as possible. And also, I feel we've been cannibalizing this building for years by having the building and not having to pay anything for it. So I think that we need to get more conscious of how that fits into the overall capacity we have as a library. We can't just continue to ignore that. I mean, you were shocked at how much, when you looked into Jim Conroy's opinion as to how much things would cost. You had commented how fortunate we were to have the Lansingburg building
Oh,
because of how much things cost now.
yeah, except that our buildings are both very old and fairly expensive to operate.
Yes.
We're not putting into the building what we need to put in. We never have. We've put millions into this thing through grants over the years, and I've written most of them. And I've found the matching funds. But there's no way that we are meeting the basic needs of either one of these buildings.
No, but
And the staff as well. I mean, I think
we just don't have that kind of resource.
Package right now, compensation for staff.
You need,
Or work environment.
you need budgets in the neighborhood of 3 million operating budgets, just to get an idea of what you need in a size operation that we have. We don't have that. We have a third of that.
well, that's all the more reason that we need to look at, since we don't have a lot of money, to look at how to use it most wisely. But, yes,
Well, I think the building now conversation has taken over the problem that we have with the staff and with hiring and with, running this operation.
I think we need to consider all those pieces and not neglect any of them. Kirsten has his hand up. I think maybe he wants to talk.
Well, let me try, not interjecting, but I do think it'd be great if we could start developing a budget strategy that is not just a one-year budget strategy, but a multi-year budget strategy that can help us get to a point where we can plan for staffing, remuneration, and work environment that is going to be more attractive to staff and to our clientele, as well as things that may help us expand the services we provide. We can't do it all 1 year. It is a big lift. I agree 100%. Our budget is very small, and we try to do it all at once. The taxpayers would be car struck very quickly. That's not going to work. But I think we need to sort of build a plan on how we get to where we need to be over the course of a few years. Is that of course over 2 years or 5 years or 10 years? We just sort of plan for that.
I think, well, I think that I agree that the priority really is the staff and that, but I don't think it's a bad idea to know where we stand with these. Not that they're gonna take the place of.
No, we should
But
take
that
a look.
we should know in our
at
mind.
what we have in the construction accounts. But as I said, it's gonna probably fall a bit short.
Right, and then so, I mean, we have no idea in the total, like kind of, if we got every grant that we've applied to, now what is our obligation? So should we keep applying for all these grants? Should
Yeah,
we?
I can
that kind of
tell
thing.
you what those numbers are. I'm not prepared to do it at the moment.
Well,
No, and
I
what
can-
you
Nor
were,
was that what I was proposing. I was just proposing that we have something separate to look at that.
Yeah,
And nor am I saying, hey, the building's a priority over the staff. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that all these things are important to keep our programs running, and that we should be conscious of them all. And make a place for them all. We can't just not put anything toward our building. I mean, none of the libraries do that. Most of the libraries that were built, in the 70s or have been totally remodeled. They didn't,
Gilderland was just remodeled for $7 million about 10 years after they built it.
right. and-
So there always are
Schools
Quality and
Schools
so
were
on.
remodeled 10, 12 years after they built.
not 15 years. This is
Oh,
like-
okay.
Just getting on it.
Yeah.
And because we
We
don't,
haven't been modeled since 1897, just in case you wondering.
Put an elevator, there we go.
that's right, that's a big one.
but we also
But there's
talked
more to
about
it.
the fact that, modern buildings aren't designed to last 125 years.
This is
True, most of the school buildings aren't designed to.
And we're trying to do as much as possible with the resources we have available by going after these grants. But they do require some investment
Well,
on our part. as
in
well.
addition, I will say that going after the grants will not keep up with the needs of these two buildings in the long run. It's not gonna work. There's not enough capital grants to do that out there. if there was, we'd be looking at. it.
That means we should go after the ones.
You
that are there,
can't,
though.
yeah, you can't keep up with these 200-year-old buildings with the grants that are available. It's just not possible.
That could be part of it.
And nobody's saying that, but if you don't, but it's something we can do.
And the other thing,
And
the other thing is the salary schedules that I came up with is based on libraries and salary information today. Now, libraries are, as we are
Right,
working
everybody's looking
on
at that.
revising their salary schedule.
But Paul, I'm
By
not
next year-
arguing against the salary. I'm just saying, let's not forget
Well,
all
no,
our
the
costs. It's
person
sort
was
of like,
asking for a plan going forward, how we're gonna meet these. By the time we come up with a plan and how to meet these, they're gonna be way ahead.
That's gonna be part of the plan, is to include
Yeah.
salary
You're
increases.
gonna
for
have to
staff.
build in what's going on out there. And with an 8% inflation rate, you're gonna see salary schedules from all these libraries revised next year.
I would not be surprised. Just think we need to develop a plan that looks forward-looking, that prepares our taxpayers that there will be tax increases. And it's not gonna be 1% per year.
No.
and we can't just blindly go on applying for grants without knowing whether we have the capacity to take advantage of it either.
Well, as I have stated before, I think in terms of keeping up with the needs of these two buildings alone, you're gonna have to bond,
Yeah,
at some point. Perhaps not this year, but at some point, I think we're gonna have.
Well, and we're exploring that, aren't we?
Hmm?
Aren't we exploring bonding?
We are exploring bonding
So-
based on matching those grants.
At the same time as that, we're exploring that opportunity for
Well,
bonding in
yeah,
general.
we are.
Even
we
though
are.
the impetus in doing this may be the grants and possibly needing it for the grant. So we are exploring bonding.
That's another factor that's gonna be a bit unknown. I can give you figures about what's gonna be in the library construction grant or library construction fund. And I can give you, figures like what the request is. Okay, here's the, but
I'm not
if we're
asking you for those.
exploring-
I'm saying, hey, let's us do it. And when we're asking the city, hey, would you be willing to back us up with bonding? We're not even quoting any numbers necessarily. We're finding out whether that's even a possibility for us.
Right.
So where it might well have a particular identified need at this point, it also opens that opportunity up for all sorts of other things. We have to ask the question and get an answer in order to be moving forward. And that's, we are doing that as well.
I guess it still gets back to what do I do in the next 30 days on a budget for 2023? What do you want me to do? What do you want to see?
Retirement and the salary schedule,
What's that?
the retirement and the salary schedule. And I think
Well, that's what I was kind of thinking of working on into a budget now. It's relatively simple. If you look at a budget and it says retirement and it says 107,000, it's not going to be a lot of funny figures.
What percentage change would that make from last year? If we went ahead with the full salary schedule and went ahead with the full budget, retirement.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to put together between now and June. Basically,
so
it
it's
looks-
about $200,000.
Yeah, it looks like
What's that on a
$200,000.
percentage basis?
15 to 20,
18%.
somewhere between 15 and 20%.
Yeah,
increase over last.
So if it's 200,000 and Andy said 100,000 is 8% increase, a 200,000 would be 16% plus 5% in materials. So I don't know what materials are.
well, that's pretty small.
Right, I would assume the base amount on that's
Our
pretty small.
materials
so-
budget is
but,
very,
I may be the only one who needs this kind of visual aid, but it would help me if I had a budget, all things maybe being equal, but one that had the salary schedule, one that had the retirement system, and one that had both the salary schedule, the new salary schedule, and retirement system.
You want to do the, look at the numbers that
But
I was talking about, that I was
of
talking about.
the grants. Yeah, you know,
I'm just trying to get a closure.
you mean the whole budget, or can I just give you the?
No,
total?
everything, I just said, everything else being equal, so we have an idea what the budget looks like, but the bottom line of
I'm
this
just trying
what
to save
happens.
paper. You
I know,
want
it's
to-
really good. No, I don't need three packets, just the bottom line.
I see. Yeah, no, I can do that.
That's what I did
That's
say,
totally-
everything being equal. Let's say.
Well, yeah, just
And that's
like,
great.
yeah, you could see it, this column and this
Yeah,
column. and this
right.
column.
That would really
Yeah.
help me go, oh, okay, okay,
Yeah,
A, B, and C.
right.
And don't worry, you don't have to do one with none of them.
Or none.
That would help. Okay, so have we kind of gone through our discussion on this?
Wait, so just to clarify,
Oh, you've
you're
been so
gonna do the
good, Brad.
budget things, and Marie and Carolyn are going to meet about the building stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna,
grants
we're gonna talk it out.
Will that be a finance committee?
It could be
Instead of
like,
just a,
Yeah,
whichever.
it could be, yeah,
That would be good.
yeah,
And
more
then-
the merrier.
Is the intent then to vote on a budget when?
well, I would present a budget in June.
We go
You
back to
don't
those
have to
dates.
vote on it in June. What's the schedule? We have a
I'm
schedule.
essentially wondering when we need to vote on the budget. You know, is June we can have a discussion about this, or June we need to make a decision on this?
I think you have to, you want to present.
That's on my
in
backwards.
June.
Yeah, but we want to make changes. We have to present it again.
We can vote in
Yeah.
July, or do we have a whole month that we can?
Yeah.
Or
Our
do
budget,
we-
our
When do
budget
we have to vote
was
on the budget by in order to?
Oh, I think, didn't we talk about July or
We did.
August?
I think it's, I'm trying to find those notes. It's in the little corner. I didn't expect to be before today.
July or August?
July?
At least 30,
Yeah.
July would be preliminary, August is final.
okay.
Okay,
Okay.
So next month, we can look at those basics, you
You
know,
look
kind
at-
of,
right.
so July is final. Is I think we've gone through all the other parts of the process, so we got all our different recommendations, what we want, we would like to see in it, what.
Although
everyone
the
else's
sooner
ideas,
that
what's in
we
it.
have an agreement, there may be a little bit of salesmanship that needs to go on between here and September.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If we go on.
so the sooner we know what we want to do, probably better.
Does that help with clarification? Okay,
Right,
is
so
there
next
any,
item,
is there any more on this piece? So we can, okay.
let's go to the next.
Thank you. All right, so the next three is speaking of which, the 2022 election. Try to get things set in advance. I know people laugh at me for doing that, but I think it'd be good if we can actually set the date. So we know where we're headed for it and talk about the format, at least. Do we still want to hold this in September? I mean, Paul has given us an idea of why we do it in September and not at an election time. And it has been the tradition. Previous members here have said, well, people are used to having our election in September. Anyone have any objections or comments on keeping it to that month?
No, I do remember you brought up when religious holidays hit.
Oh, yeah, that's just the actual day, but
Mhm.
so September's good. The other question always comes up is Tuesday, should we stick with the Tuesday, because again, the field,
She writes the
This
minutes,
is how
so we
I
have to go
feel.
by what she says.
I wouldn't change anything
okay,
at this point, because you're just gonna be accused of
Yeah,
trying to,
faking it.
yes,
Yes.
trying to make you look confused and not come out vote.
especially if there's gonna be
Right.
some sort of substantial.
I would stay as close as possible as what you.
But without having that conversation, it's not up to me to say it's gonna be Tuesday and what day. But the one thing I can say is, we'll usually have it at the end of the month. We cannot do it on the 27th because it is Rosh Hashanah.
Or we can do it on the 20th.
We can do it on the 20th. That would give us the longest period in September, make it on a Tuesday, and as far as I know, there's no Jewish holidays. And if there is, it's not a Yom Tov. So does the
In
20th?
fact, I don't think there are any Christian holidays on that day. Either.
Okay, good. And I don't think there's any Hindu or anything. Well, you see, with certain Jewish holidays, you can't go out and do these things. With other holidays, you can get around it, but we are forbidden to do such things.
Christian holidays is part of it.
Really? No kidding, okay,
Depends who you ask.
I'm learning. I am much learning, and I did get some flack for doing it on Yom Tov last year on Yitzhak. We deal with, all right, so September 20th, 2022 for election. Our format has been, we need to have 2 public meetings. We usually do the one here on our board meeting, after our board meeting on the 13th. So our meeting would end just before 7. We probably have a lunch here, and then go upstairs and do the meeting. And then the next one at Lansingburg, which would probably then be the 15th of that week, because you don't have a lot of time. There's some problems with that. Are people agreeable to that?
What were you saying again?
The 13th,
Okay.
which is a Tuesday, to have a public meeting at the main library. And on the 15th,
Okay, with the-
at Thursday, the 15th at Lansingburg, and then by then they should be back to normal-ish hours of opening.
They should be back by June.
Okay, well, the caveat. So is everyone okay with that?
Both at 7 p.m. Both at 7 p.m.
Yes.
I just, they just been here.
Okay, we're good. And last quick format question is, we've been using I'm sure we'll have the League of Women Voters run the election, but we've also had the League of Women Voters do the Q&A for the candidates. Do we still want to do it that way? Seems like we're working good. Okay,
no exception time for
all
me.
right, so good. Thank you, everybody.
How many spots are gonna be open for the election?
There are 2.
2?
As of this moment, there's 2. You never know what could happen last year. Went from 1 to 3.
Say that.
Very careful about this. Okay, so I think we have completed, unless anyone has anything to say on that. Now we're up to the new 4, which is the 125th anniversary of the Hart Memorial Building.
Yes, that is this year, that is this month.
We missed it.
We acknowledge it.
It was a
So,
lovely day. It was such a great celebration.
in light of this event, and this eventuality, some of the staff has suggested that we do something to celebrate the 125th anniversary of the Hart Memorial Building. So actually, I'm not a good planner of these sorts of things, but Virginia is. And she had a number of great ideas about what kind of a celebration we have, primarily an open house, in conjunction with Troy Night Out. Virginia, maybe you could elaborate a bit on
I
some of
will.
your ideas.
So I have to say that before I say any of this, this is, dream big and, throwing out a wide net, and it won't happen without complete buy-in from the board and the staff. Not only because of the time, but the type of event that we want to have. Carolyn, I heard your question, not directly, but that's pretty much the idea. So the idea being reconnecting with the community, inviting people back in, making sure they know we're open and what we have available to them here at this location. So essentially, I'm suggesting an open house format on Troy Night Out, July 29th. The public
July?
hours,
May 29th.
July.
July
Oh, July.
29.
Mhm.
Okay.
July, Troy Night Out.
With the public hours being 5:30 to 7:30, so after the library closes. The idea being 5:30 to 6 would be our reception time, which we would invite local people of note. Which this is where I would ask the board for a complete list of who should be invited to attend this event. But also the department heads and the director would also contribute to that list, allowing the board to either write personal notes with the invitations or whatever. Those details can be worked out, and I'm already set up to send out the email with the form for you guys to submit that if this is accepted today. But we will send an invitation to people of note, 5:30 to 6 being our reception time. We will have refreshments available for the duration of the open house. There will be 6 main stations. We will utilize 2 outdoor spaces and then 4 indoor spaces. The first station, which is our welcome station, will be out on the sidewalk. We're gonna have balloons, signage. Some of you may know about our parade participation in the past. So I am intending to revive thing 1, thing 2, and Cat in the Hat. They will be, yes, they will be outside, welcoming people, balloons, everything. Hey, come down here. We will have sidewalk art with chalk outside, and a small welcome table. Station 2, when you enter the building, will be the lobby, which is where our reception area will be. We'll have our refreshments there. Station 3 is the courtyard, which my hope is to secure at least 2 performers of music, or 1 that's willing to perform at 2 different times, not for the duration, because we will also host 2 building tours scheduled at 6 and 7 o'clock. Then you have the art gallery space, which will be, in my hope, a magician scheduled show at a specific time with a passive craft and children's giveaways in that section. And then the reading room, this is I'm gonna go back to that. So then some of you may know Bruno, who's our skeleton that often keeps my staff company.
You did that whole song, you don't talk about
Yes,
Bruno.
I know.
Oh, my God.
So I intend to
How
do
could
a
that be?
selfie station with Bruno, who will be in costume and set up for the occasion. And then the reading room is kind of our big, this is why we're actually here, and why I need board buy-in. Not just because your faces should be known and it's an opportunity to meet our people, but because, are some of you familiar with libraries that allow you to check out a person? If you're not, it's where the libraries have appointments available to interview or talk with persons you might not necessarily be able to talk to. Sometimes it's different ethnicity, religion, cultural events, that sort of thing. So I intend to combine that and coffee with a cop and call it borrow an ear. And I would like the board to commit to, there would be between 5:30 and 7:30, half-hour timeframes to be available to man the borrow an ear station, where you are available with also a volunteer staff person for people to come up to and talk to and ask questions. If we get enough people, we can have 2 stations. If not, we'll just have 1 for each half hour. And we can certainly have 2 board persons per half hour, and we want to include everybody. And then in the reading room, we will have blown up photos of library past, from the archives, the scrapbooks, whatever the case may be, highlighting our most recent grants and improvements to the building. And allowing us to also list what we're currently working on. So I was kind of happy to see that the finance committee was doing that, because that would actually, that information would lead right into what I want. So you can have those displayed, not necessarily this building is horrible, but we care about this building and this is what we're trying to do to keep what we need to do done. But also library future, such as the rest of our summer reading programs that are scheduled, our fall programs. And then also include program pictures and possibly have a station with a monitor set up to view videos that the staff created during the pandemic, to just have them playing. Big open house party, decorations everywhere. That is my idea.
It's a great idea.
Of course.
I love it.
That is, my job is ideas. So we also anticipate partnering with the Friends in some way.
That's what I was gonna ask you.
I'm not speaking for the Friends for participation or financial support, but Paul will be discussing that with them. What role they'd like to play, and then, of course, again, big net, so whatever ends up being our budget is what we will do.
Each kid that comes blows up 2 balloons then.
So could you come up with a price?
I could enlist people who have those talents to do that.
I mean, just so, I mean, then if we need to go out and get money, we know what we're asking for.
Right, so essentially, my idea today is present my big net. If I get no objections, then yes, the next step would be, how much does this cost? And let's get started, because we need to do it now. And if not, then what can we change to still make an event happen?
I think it sounds great.
Yeah, me
I think it sounds great
Really
too.
think it's
Doesn't
exciting.
sound that expensive.
Yeah, that's
Sure,
not
so
gonna be awesome.
Honestly, that's my special talent.
Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't.
Every
You're
staff
looking at
person
listening.
at the library have that talent.
Yes.
There's not a lot of time to put this together. It, so I guess the question is, you know, do we have the support of the board? Is everybody on board? Is everybody gonna be able to show up on the 29th? Is everybody-
Understanding that if we only do what we can secure appropriate funding for without paying for it out of, maybe a few program dollars, but nothing extravagant unless we can secure that in other ways.
Well, yeah, I think right now the plan is to ask the Friends for support on this.
The major
Um,
expenses of this would be paying the performers, the refreshments,
Yeah.
and then balloons.
Some decorations.
Yes, in the deck,
Sorry.
May I ask, it sounds like there's a invited portion and then there's a public portion. I'm just curious why the distinction, what is the intent of the invited portion? Are we making a special ask to the people who are invited? Are we, why is it not all public? Just curious.
the invited portion will be public as well, so that reception between 5:30 and 6 it's open to the public. But we're asking our notable persons, is what I'm calling them, to join us. So
Okay, so
it's
it's
rather,
not exclusively invited,
no,
it's open to the public.
it is,
and
it's
we're
just,
asking some
instead of
people-
saying, hey, everyone should come, we're saying, you please come, you're important to us, we acknowledge you, please come.
Right, thank you for clarifying.
So, and the invite list would be people who have supported us, it can be local business people, it can be politicians, the city council, the Troy bid,
So if somebody's wandering by, they're allowed to come in the door.
absolutely,
Okay.
and we will have flyers, we will advertise on our website, we will do all the normal advertising for events.
Thank you.
We'll
Yes,
need to get some invitations out pretty soon. And also, we might ask members of the board to speak to a couple of these people that really encourage them to show up.
Come on down.
I know a lot of politicians say, oh, sure, I'll be there. But you mean, really?
So are you asking them to come and present certificates recognizing that it's our 125th anniversary or anything? That might be a way to get them.
I
there.
can
The county always likes to do that.
well, I can say from my
Sure,
point of
Mayor.
view,
Yeah.
my point of view was, please tell me who to invite, and then I would ask the board if they wanted to make a special request of the person that they want to invite. There'll be a Google form where you can put that, yes, I'd like to make a special request. I will have the invitations available. I have a timeline. It's set up and I am really ready to go. So trust me when I say this is possible with buy-in. So I would have the invitations available in-house before they're mailed out, where you could put your personal note and your personal letter. We would enclose a letter with the invitation saying, you know, anything specific.
It seems to be fairly traditional to ask them to recognize you in some way, but, you know.
And I would appreciate anybody on the board who wanted to do that. Like, it doesn't, I'm coordinating, but my special skill is delegation. I will keep everybody on task.
But also, I mean, it would certainly be nice to invite people and recognize their contributions, as you say, like all the people who provided us with letters of support again. You know, but I'm
Oh, yeah,
surprised they even talked to me, you know.
I think we
So-
would use
so
our
just-
donation list, you know, as invitations. We certainly would use that, plus, yeah, I mean,
So I just didn't know what the intent was, to
Yeah.
recognize supporters or to ask, you know, ask for recognition, as the city frequently does, as say both at county level and city level.
yeah, we could ask for a certificate from the
And that
city
is-
or the county.
and from-
or-
And that is
McDonald and
completely like
Breslin.
what I'm asking from the board is those type of things. You can put that all together. I will make sure that everything goes out on time. but it-
Yeah, remember, the county is our neighbor.
I think
Approach it that way.
part of our intent here, most of our intent is to have a big open house with attention focused on the library before the election.
Yes, you know, we are.
So
Yes.
I'm
We're
hearing,
doing what we can
I will
do.
keep the meeting going, but I'm hearing that there is collective support, then I will proceed with that understanding. And I will send out like the email, the Google form for the invitations and things like that, so that I can keep track of everything and when they're sent out to who. I will also keep an RSVP list.
Should we vote on it? I mean, because officially we don't make a decision unless it's voted on.
Maybe we should, I mean,
That will support the,
Again, I defer to the board for the proceedings. I'm just here to send my ideas.
it's kind of,
Okay, I will make the motion that the board of the Tripod Local Library supports the initiative headed by the head of circulation, Virginia Westcott. We support her initiative in preparing activities and for the event of the 125th anniversary of the Hart Memorial Library on
and,
July 29th.
and
Don't forget.
support by our president.
Right.
29.
Yes.
With our
Just
president
not
also.
support, but
With our,
we commit.
we are committed to this.
Physical
Um,
presence.
Thank you, because I know you managed to put everything in so much better words.
Keith is second.
Okay, all in favor?
I,
Okay, we're all good, so
Okay,
done.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
One, I'm sorry, this doesn't need to be voted on, but one aspect would be any, I know this is part of the auditor, but we are working on fundraising for the merch store. A merch store, we can talk about that another time, but we will have those things available. hopefully.
By July.
Right.
Run it
With the
through the friends and call it a
Yes.
day.
The merch store is online.
We compete
I can
with
share
them for
more about
merch.
that.
We used to. Okay,
Okay.
so, good. Director's report?
Oh, I think we covered everything I possibly could have put in there. Except for Lansingburg redo, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, okay. We have hired, or we're working on hiring a couple more people for Lansingburg circulation, Lansingburg clerical persons. And get them trained. We're looking at going back to our 36-hour week by mid-June. We're at 24 hours now. With 36 hours was pre-pandemic hours. Everything else is pretty much covered.
All new business?
wanted to come back to the administration committee. We have a lot of work to do in the administration committee with the evaluation of the director and exit surveys and so forth. It doesn't work out trying to schedule. We lose a lot of time in doing that. I'd like to set up for now a monthly time that we can use for that until we no longer need it. Brianna, you had said Tuesday and Wednesday evenings are good for you.
Yes,
Do you wanna-
however, I think I need to take a step back from the administrative committee for the time being, so please do not schedule it.
Okay, so you don't think you can be part of
I
it?
think I just need to take a step back from that.
So who are we talking about? Keith, or I don't know, you said you wanted to be on one or the other. I don't know which one you chose.
I preferred finance. I will not come to Tuesday administration meetings. Wednesdays is a bit more likely. Tuesdays, I have a conflict.
And so it's Evelyn and I, and you are in administration. committee? And who else? Jerry?
Jerry. I've already expressed my concern about having something that is, again, a standardized meeting. I know it's difficult, but some things I think we can just sort of plan out. I've always said, let's use Joy to do our planning, but having another set date, I think just adds, you're usually the one that says we've got too much.
I do, but also I've seen the difficulty in trying to get things done for the administration committee. So now we've had the employee session on the retirement system. We've just had the employer. You've also expressed that you'd like to see these things move forward.
Well, I'm asking for
And
an
the
evaluation.
And the importance of the exit survey, people said that was really important. We, so we can say, hey, we don't need this anymore on a regular basis when we don't.
Or one thing we can do is term limit it, say, one Wednesday a month, 4 o'clock or 4:30 to 7, and we do this for 3 months or 4 months.
And then reevaluate.
Yeah.
Well, for example, the evaluation thing really ought to be done before our budget goes in.
Well, it would be nice to do that. So let's schedule a
That's
meeting.
one done. Now, is it still gonna be Wednesdays then? Because
Well-
I only have one Wednesday.
No, because Brianna said she can't make it, and I know that her schedule is tighter than any of the rest of us, so I usually like to start with her, make sure that we're not choosing something that rules her out. So it's among us, we can do it, since we've identified who it is, I can work offline, but it will be for something that's not just that one day.
All right,
Tuesdays, I would have to be done by 6.
but it absolutely has to have
Otherwise,
a.
Wednesdays, I would prefer 7. Or 7.
But again, it has to have something with an absent sunset date. Even our building committee has a, as of the moment, has a sunset date.
Building committee?
Yeah, well, we're meeting regularly until June and then we're going to reevaluate.
We had a goal.
Right.
It's not, it was not for, that was for one report, that was not for the committee, that was for the report of that one task, and I think that I was very happy to get support from the building committee to do that. And it was not that
I thought it
easy.
was committee. Well, then I'm even more, I'm more
It was-
concerned
It was-
about
It was
having,
a goal to finish up that matrix.
then I'm even more concerned about having something. So it has to absolutely have sunset. So
October,
6 months, you said?
I think that's way too long.
I don't,
Well, why don't we have a couple meetings and see what happens? How's that? When do you want to start having, when do you want to have the first meeting?
well, it would be nice to have one between now and the next meeting of the board.
Okay.
You go beyond your stuff.
Okay, thank you, Kirsten.
Thank you.
So I'll be in touch with the three of you. And of course, there's Paul too. Almost
Amanda,
forgot.
I check my email once a day now.
Good for you.
I get paid to show up.
That's great.
I'm sure we all
Can't wait
wish we
to
could
get
say the same.
You don't get paid by the hour though, Paul.
Those are the days.
Okay. On to old business new business.
That was.
That was it.
Oh, I thought that was administrative.
Anything else?
Well, it was, yeah, and that's just,
We talked about that.
I have an addition to my director's report.
Okay, go for it.
Tomorrow I will meet with the people from the Gilded Age.
Oh.
I was wondering.
Maybe
Thanks
they'll
for bringing it up. I
coincide.
forgot to ask.
Yeah, no, I forgot, but yeah, tomorrow we're gonna meet with them. They're scheduled to film in August, first week of August in Troy. They're gonna be filming more in Albany and Cohoes this year than Troy, but some in Troy.
Not
My-
Saratoga?
Hmm?
You're not doing Saratoga? I didn't
That that would be.
I don't know,
part of
she's-
their schedule.
He didn't mention Saratoga, but
It
know.
doesn't
Oh,
work.
August and, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't work their schedule.
my problem is what they're interested in is the reading room upstairs.
Can we get them to fix the?
So, and we're very close to bidding that job to repair those 4 areas. So it's gonna be a little tricky.
Maybe they'll pay for it.
Hmm?
Maybe they pay for it.
Yeah.
They did do something, didn't they? We're all waiting on some things.
Yeah, the only thing that they would do, they would pay for just plastering it
Right,
over,
right,
you
right.
know?
Make it look good.
That's how we do things like that.
In that case, make sure they get invited to the open house.
Well, that's good though, because that's more money than just using the exterior, right?
Yeah, I mean, they give you a little bit, but you know, it's. I mean, the problem is if they want to use the reading room, not only is the construction is a problem, but the other problem is you pretty much have to be closed those hours that they're filming. Last time, we didn't have to close because they were filming everything outside. But this, they want to come in.
Well,
In August, in the
August.
reading room?
First week of
Have
August.
they ever been
And
in the
those
reading room?
costumes.
But they don't
Do they
know,
know what they're
they
getting
don't
into?
know that we're not air
I
conditioned.
was gonna say.
I'll mention that at some point. Sorry, go ahead.
They're called big ass fans, literally. Even down to 6-foot sizes.
We have some big ones here.
Go for it. Not that anybody cares. Hello, I say go for it. Gilded Age. Get them in here. Get big bucks from them. And really, it will advertise our library far and wide.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, community feedback, does anyone else?
Well, I have some that I was asked to share with the board. A patron and former board member was in here looking for some material, couldn't find it, and Frank and our circulation staff went and looked thoroughly for her. It was not there, but still, she was very impressed with how he went beyond the call of duty to look and find what she was seeking. So she's asked that it be presented to the board and to her, the head of search, and to the person himself that's been done. I also have to say that at a program last week, Haiku Highway, the presenters wanted to thank Stephanie for her over the call of duty efforts in making sure the event actually came to fruition. So they said she was so enthusiastic and helpful that they gave her special kudos. And then to Anne, who came up and fixed a technical difficulty, which sort of kept the program actually going. So that is community feedback. Anyone else? Okay. Public comment? Carol?
Oh,
So guess what? Date and time of next meeting, June 14th, 2022. You'll leave the location, TBD, if it's gonna be here or Lansingburg, depending on what's going on, if that's okay with everybody.
Wait, why would it be in Lansing?
Oh, we try to, sorry, we try to do one meeting a year in Lansingburg. We usually try to do it when the snowman is also open.
Yes, I
Yes.
love it.
Yeah, there's some pragmatism to it, but because the library's not open, but we're holding off, we decided to hold off, but it will be one of the summer months. Okay, great, thank you. So I make anything else
Can we go?
before? All right, I call, make a motion to adjourn,
Okay.
Keith seconds, all in favor?
If you get out of here in the next 10 minutes, you're good.
That's right.
Window.
Thank
how do
you,
we secure
everybody.
What's that?
How do we secure?
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to have to call you back to.
No, yeah, I'll get that.
So is that a new piece of equipment? Oh, forgot.
Yeah, that's new.
Yeah.
So you can, it's better, you know, when we record it before, it's hard to hear.
It is, it's.
First take this.
So this should take care of it.
Yeah,
Actually, I could probably exit this thing somehow.
yeah.
Cool. I don't think we're gonna do that.
Oops,
Evelyn, where did you get this from?
I can't,
Oh, the table? Okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah, not a
Oh.
problem.
something is really,
It was an easy lift.
I'm saying goodbye.
No, that's okay.
Or if you move